Okay, Vino Adonay Nuhino Aleno Maase Adeno Kone Nadeno Maase Adeno Konel. We'll continue on in the book Shaare Orah. Hopefully, Bezat Hashem, we're either going to finish it today or finish it next Sunday. Okay, finish the first Sha'ar. There's 9 Sha'arim to go. So over here, I'm reading in the Shaare Orah on this version that we have here on page Kof Samachet. It says over here, Sof Davar, at the end of it all, Da ki Hashem hanikra Adonai, that the name that is called Aleph Daled Nun Yud with a kamatz under the nun, kifi hadavar hanimshach elav ben mibifnim ben mibachutz, which means whatever is drawn to that name, whether it's from the inside or from the outside, kach nikra shemo. This is how his name is called. Im latov, im lara, which means he had a whole discussion previously that, remember, the Aleph Daled Nun Yud corresponds to the Malchut, right? The Malchut is called Aniyah V'Daliyah, which means empty and poor. Yes? Malchut is a kli that is empty vessel. Malchut has to be filled with something else, right? So when the Jewish people are doing mitzvot ma'asim tovim, then the Malchut is filled with the right side, right? The right side of the sfirot, which is the chesed and the netzach, right? And it comes down to the Malchut through the right side, and that's all. And there's a lot of shefa and bracha when it's coming on the chesed side. When the Jewish people are not behaving properly, unfortunately not doing mitzvot ma'asim tovim to that level, then it comes to for the left side. Now the difference is from the left side, what it is a limitation of goodness. It's not bad. Okay? What the Givurah represents is a limitation of good. It's not bad. I mean, vis-a-vis comparatively to the Chesed versus the Givurah, it seems bad, but it's not, okay? Because it's a limitation of goodness is not, it's din, it's not as good as having exposure to full goodness, right? But it's not bad because all that's coming is still judgment, according to what we're discussing here, is a limitation of Shefa. That's not bad. And that's why he said over here, when a person dies, what do? You say a bracha. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Why would you say a bracha? Because death is not bad. Death is still tov. It's din, so it's a limitation of tov, but it's still tov.
Even if this guy was a Rasha.
Think about this example. We'll get to that. Think about this example. When the Birkat Hamazon from the Torah, how many brachot are there?
4.
From the Torah. I was very careful about my language. 3. If you look at the language of the Mishnah, what is Birkat Hamazon called? It's not Birkat Hamazon. Nowhere in the Mishnah is it called Birkat Hamazon. Shalosh berachot. 3 brachot. Why? Because there are 3 brachot in Birkat Hamazon that are from the Torah. One was Moshe Rabbeinu, one is Yoshua, the text, Yoshua, and the last one was David HaMelech. But this midoraita to say 3 brachot for the achata vesavata uberechta. When was the 4th bracha added? Which is Dirabanan. It's not Doraita. When was the 4th bracha added? No. Anshe Betar. So after the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash, in the time of Rabbi Akiva, with the Bar Kokhba rebellion, yes, the Romans obviously decimated that whole situation, put the rebellion down very, very strongly. Okay, that's when the name of Jerusalem in Israel was changed. They insulted the Jewish people by calling it Philistinia, Aeolina, and Jerusalem was called Aeolina Capitolina. Okay, and they wanted to, and they basically plowed the Temple Mount, so we would lose all the landmarks for the Mizbeach, so we wouldn't know where the Mizbeach was going to be, right? So they plowed it, okay, and that was a pasuk also that was brought from the Navi, that in the future it said that it would be plowed, and that was fulfilled by the Romans in the time of Betar. So what happened? This was a big city, Betar, tremendous amount of people. It's one of the things that Tisha B'Av commemorates, and the entire city they were killed. Romans killed the whole city. And they would not allow the Jewish people to bury their brothers and sisters and left the bodies out. And it went on for a while, 7 months, if memory serves, something like that, yes? And when the Romans finally allowed the Jewish people to go in and bury their brothers and sisters, the bodies had not decomposed at all. So because of this nes, they added a bracha to the Birkat Hamazon, which was called Hatov Vemetiv. How's that Tov Vemetiv? So we understand that the concepts of din, okay, this is what he brought up over here before. The concept of a din is a limitation of goodness. As long as it's coming from the Shefa, as long as it's coming from the Ein Sof, it's coming from the Keter, yes? Therefore, everything that comes through the Sfirot is Tov. Everything that Hashem does is Tov, yes?
Absolutely.
Good. But there's another circumstance that he brought up over here, where when the deeds are really, really bad, it's possible that the Shefa for Malchut is obtained from the Sitra Achra, from the side of the Tum'ah. And then that's Ra. That's not coming directly from Hashem, by the way.
The size of the Tumah.
The side of the
Has nothing to
Tumah.
do with Sefirot.
There are Sefirot in the side of the Tumah as well. Okay, he's going to talk. It's not the time to talk about this in more detail. Suffice it to say, there could be deeds that are so bad that the tzinorot are closed. So therefore, the shefa from the shamayim is not. And since the malchut is always looking to fill herself with something, when the shefa from above is decreased or is eliminated temporarily, then it receives shefa from the tum'ah. But that's not.
It feels doesn't matter if it's positive or negative.
That's exactly. There's another example of that. Another classic example. A couple of parashot from now, we're going to read about Para Aduma. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And the parasha Para Aduma discusses the fact of there's something called Tum'ah Be'ohel, that a Jewish dead body that's inside under a roof, everything inside is Tamemet. Jewish dead body. Okay? From a halacha point of view, a Gentile dead body does not have that level of tumah. Okay? A Gentile dead body, if you touch it, you become tamemet. But if there's a Gentile that is dead inside a building, okay, there's no tumat ohel.
The airspace.
Right. The Ashkenazim are machmir on that for a Kohen. That's why they don't want Kohenim going to a hospital. Rama says they should not do that, even if there's Gentiles there, because there are opinions that say that the Gentile also is tamemet, but that's not the halacha. The halacha is only a Jewish dead body causes tum'ah in an ohel. So the question is, how could that? Why is that? Why should it be that the Jewish body causes more tum'ah than the Gentile body?
There's much more energy.
It's a bigger kli.
That's what I mean.
It's a bigger utensil, which means it holds more. So therefore, when it's filled with a neshama, that's chelek elo ma'al, right? Because the Jewish body is filled with a neshama when it's alive. So therefore, it's full of kedusha. When the neshama leaves, what happens? It becomes empty and it gets filled with tum'ah. Well, same thing we just talked about here.
But the size is the same.
But the size is bigger. Because why? The keli of a Jewish body, is a utensil that's able to hold more than a Gentile body. Okay? So therefore, we're talking spiritual, obviously not physical, right? So just like there's more potential for spirituality, there's more potential for tum'ah.
Bigger the risk, bigger the reward.
That same idea. Okay? And that's why, what has a greater effect on what goes in the Shamayim? The Jewish people or the Gentiles?
Everything comes from the Jewish people.
The Jewish people have a much greater impact on what goes in the spiritual world. That's why when they say that the Jewish people run the world, they're incorrect from the point of view of the physical world, okay? But they are correct when we talk about the spiritual world. Because in the spiritual world, it's the actions or the inactions or negative actions of a Jew that has greater impact, either for positive or negative, in the spiritual world than a Gentile. Okay? That's the same thing we talked about here. The Malchut is always receiving Shefa. We want the Malchut to be receiving from Shefa, from the Ilan, from directly from the Ilan, through the Sfirot. Hopefully, if we're doing the right thing, it's from the right side. So everything is Shefa, a tremendous Shefa. if we're not behaving properly, the shefa is limited, but it's still shefa that's coming from above. When that shefa is shut down because of really, really bad deeds, then the malchut receives shefa chas v'shalom from the side of the tumah. Okay? He says over here, kach, and that's what he means, bimifnim and mibachutz. Bifnim, what is bifnim? From a Kabbalistic term. When we say something is inside, what does that mean?
Hidden.
Holiness. The
Profane.
more it is hidden, the more it is holy.
And the
We
more it's
discussed that before.
holy, the more it has
Kol
potential to be not holy.
kfuda bat melech penima. All of the honor of the daughter of the king is internal. Holiness is inside. Ve'asu mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Yes? Holiness is on the inside. It manifests outside, right? Manifests on the outside, but holiness is inside. When we say the word chitzon, the opposite of pinimi is chitzoni. When we say chitzon, what does that mean? Outside. When we say outside in Kabbalistic terms, what does that mean?
Non-holy.
Tum'ah. Okay? So what did he just say over here? That this name, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, Kefi HaDavarim Shachilav, basically receives sustenance. Ben Bifnim, from inside, which is basically the Sfirot. Ben Bibachutz, from outside is the Tum'ah. Kach Nikra Shmo. And this is how its name is called. Im Latov, Im Lara. Tov is anything that's coming through the Sfirot, even if it's the left side, it's still Tov. It's just less Tov, right? Ra is coming from the Sitra Ahara. Im L'Hayim, Im L'Mavet, whether it's for life or death. Im L'Nega or L'Oneg. What's the difference between Nega and Oneg?
Negative affliction.
Look at the letters. Nega, Nun, Gimel, Ayin. Oneg, Ayin, Nun, Gimel.
Same letter.
Exactly. So whether a person has oneg or chas v'shalom, a person has nega, depends on actions, where the shefa is coming from.
Also the thoughts.
And now we have a little bit more of an understanding of what we discussed a little earlier today, right? Kofer nafsho v'lo yeh nega, right? What does it say? The negef is the word is negef. Okay, but nega means when something is from the other side, right? Continuing on. V'zeu sod etz hadat tovara. And this is the sod of the etz hadat tovara. We're going to explain all this downstairs. It's incredible, by the way. I'm just going to go through this quickly, and then we're going to explain in more detail shortly. And this is the secret of what it means, etz hadat tovara. Im hamshacha mitzad hachesed nikra tov. Which means if the sustenance is coming from the side of the chesed, it's called tov. Im hamshacha mitzad adin, yesh tzad shenikra tov. It still has a side that is tov. The afapi shu mitzad adin, even though it's mitzad adin. Why? Because it's still tov. It's just less tov. Imu mitzad adin shel machanot hapinimiyim, if it's from the point of judgment, from the internal camps. Zeu sod dehu admoni im yefe enayim v'tov ro'i. That he is red. Red corresponds to din. Yes. Im yefe enayim, but he has pretty eyes. He has good-looking eyes. What's that?
White chesed eyes.
V'tov ro'i. I'm not sure if that's the drasha there. Maybe I don't know. But saying even though it's red, which means it's din, it's still called tov. Admoni v'tov ro'i, which means it's good, even though it's red, which means what? That's the concept of the din. That's from Shmuel Tet Zayin, Pasuk Yud Bet. V'im hu mitzad adin nikochot achitzonot. But if it's from the side of judgment, from the forces that are outside, which is the tum'ah, zohi ra'ah hola. Ra'ah, evil, hola, sickness. V'zehu inyan ra. And this is the word inyan ra. Even though it's two words, it's the statement inyan ra. When he puts it in quotes like this, he's teaching you that these words are remez, are hints to this. So whenever a person sees in the Torah these words or in the Tanakh these words, okay, it's a remez to receiving from the borot nishbarim, from the pits that are broken.
Those like the broken vessels?
Oh, very good. Borot nishbarim, because it's the broken vessels that caused the shoresh of the tumah. That was the birth of Ra. Okay. Ve'aven ze me'od. And you have to really understand this a lot well. Ki b'sha'ah shem aleph daled nun yud moshech mitzad hachesed. When the name aleph daled nun yud is drawing from the side of the chesed, nikra tov. It's called tov. Ve'gam keshu moshech mitzad hadin min ha'pnimiim. And when the aleph daled nun yud is drawing from the inner but the left side, also mitzad hadin nikra gam ken tov, still called tov. V'zeu sod baruch dayan ha'emet. When do we say baruch dayan ha'emet? When a person hears besorot ra'ot, right? But really, from the sod, it's not ra. Death is not ra. How do we understand that? Huh?
Nothing Hashem does is ra.
Correct. And everything that is ra in the world, truly ra, even though Hashem sort of allows it to happen, he gave it the koach for there to be ra, okay? But that's in order to give us proper choice, yes? Although Ramchal would say there's another reason why God created big ra. Why did he create big ra? The deepest reason, the simplest reason, according to the people just on the outside, is sachar va'onesh. If you don't have ra, you have no choice. Bechira chofshit. That's not what the Ramchal says. The highest level is to recognize the tremendous pleasure you're going to get in the time of the resurrection of the dead, when we see the destruction of ra. And the only way you can appreciate it is by having experienced it in your life. And when you're going to see that destruction of Ra, and you're going to recognize that Ra never had a standing in the world, that it really it's false, it's temporary, then that's going to create a tremendous elation. And that's what we mean when we says, Vayar Yisrael Mitzrayim met al sefat hayam. And when they saw the Egyptians dying at their feet, Az Yashir Moshe, they sung the song. They didn't sing when they left Egypt. They didn't. They waited until they saw the Egyptians dying at their feet. And that's when they sung. That's Shirat Hayam. That's a representation of the pleasure, of the tremendous simcha that every soul who is benefiting from Tchat HaMetim is going to have when we see the destruction of Ra. But in order to have that, there needed to have been Ra. So the Ramachal says this is what's called Gilui HaYichud, the revelation of the one, which means what? There never was evil. It was fake.
How can you destroy something that's fake?
Ra is fake.
It was. How do we understand what's fake and what's real? The only thing real is something that is permanent.
Which is Hashem. So this destruction of evil is sort of, you're just gonna have new eyes, a new focus.
Correct. That's what that's it, yes.
Okay.
But we understand anything that is chai is forever. Anything that is death is not forever. Right? So Ra, Tov, is extant. How do we know Tov is extant? Always existed. Because what is Hashem? Hashem is always Tov, always giving Tov. Ra is something that was created. Ra is something that will have an end.
It was created for a temptation for us to make a choice.
That's one idea. The stronger idea is the purpose of the creation of Ra is for us to appreciate the revelation of the one and to recognize there really was no Ra at all. It was only temporary, and even what we thought was Ra wasn't really Ra. That's what the Ramchal says. There are 3 levels. The lowest level is Sachar Va'onesh, B'chira Chofshit. The next level is that a person can look back at their life and recognize that the Ra had a purpose. The 3rd level, highest level, is there was no such thing as Ra. It never really existed.
It was just our eyes, our focus was misaligned.
Correct. And that's something we'll appreciate in the time of the resurrection of the dead. Okay? Be'ezrat Hashem, we should see that soon. And he says over here, the Zeu Sod, so when we understand that the Malchut, the Aleph Daled Nun Yun, is receiving Shefa from the right side or the left side, but both of those are Pnimiyim, that's called Baruch Dayan HaEmet. So let's go back. Why is death not Ra? No, again, it comes from Hashem. But why? Why is death good? That's the question. It's not as good, shall we say, as life.
You can't have Tchiat HaMetim without Met.
Well, how can that be good?
We're going to talk about it. You're going to listen up, Charlie. Listen up. Very good. Okay. So life is Tov from the side of the Chesed. Death is Tov from the side of the Gevurah. But it's still Tov. It's just less Tov than life. Okay? Less Tov than life. So we still have to understand what is good about death. You cannot have resurrection without death, not for the reason you think. What's the reason you think? Because you have to be resurrected. That means you're dead. No. What happens if Mashiach comes tomorrow and Tchiat HaMetim is the following day? I'm not saying that's how it happens. Usually it's more a process. Tchiat HaMetim. What happens to the Jewish people who are alive in the Tchiat HaMetim?
They have to die in it.
They have to die.
Be resurrected.
Why do they have to die?
To be resurrected.
Okay, if resurrection is the purpose of a resurrection is to stay alive forever, okay, why can't they stay alive forever? Because when Adam Harishon sinned, God, in addition to throwing him out of the Garden of Eden, gave him a goof, a body that had a time. The body of Adam, when he was thrown out of the Garden of Eden after he sinned, has a expiration date. Even if it didn't age, because we know that Avraham Avinu was the first person that says Gad Zaken. So that means for the first 2,000 years, nobody aged.
The bodies didn't age?
Physically, on the outside, there was no manifestation of age.
Okay, but
you didn't get
a clock. The clock is ticking on
the
your
body has an expiration, which means there is a time when the body has to die, go into the ground, get decomposed, because that's what removes the filth of the Nachash. Removing filth is always good. Wow. So that's why death is not bad. Death is tov. It's less tov than life, because met is chofshim min hamitzvot. You don't have the ability to rise or to fall when a person dies. They're stuck, except for the actions of others. That's what makes death not as good as life. But death is still tov, because the purpose of death is to remove the filth of the nachash, which will then allow that person to come back in the resurrection of the dead. And that's why people who are alive in the time of Tchiat HaMetim die. This way they can be resurrected. Not because they have to be resurrected, they have to die to be resurrected, but that's the process. It has to be the removal of etyo shel nachash for all of us.
Remove what? Etyo?
Etyo, the
snake,
the poison, the ra'al, the what the snake injected into us. Okay? And this is why when the rabbis decided to make the Birkat Hamazon, the 4th bracha, they called out Tov Metiv, because Betar, okay, wasn't Ra. It was Din, but the side of the Penimi. I don't understand how, but let's leave it alone. Which means we understand that certain things happen to the Jewish people that are catastrophes, but they're not from the Tum'ah.
Wow, that's deep.
That's deep. Betar was a tremendous catastrophe. I mean, if we want to compare it to October 7th, there's no comparison. You know, Betar was, I think there was 900,000 people living there. and they were slaughtered and left out. It was, I mean, the difference is no hostages. So
900.
yeah, a lot, 120,000, maybe it was 120,000. 120,000. It was a lot. It was one of the biggest cities. Jerusalem was destroyed. Beitar was the next big city.
City.
And that was the source of that was where the rebellion, that was the focus point. And that's why the Romans destroyed it and killed everybody. But we understand from here that it's not exactly, that's not from the Tumah, by the way. Interesting. I'm curious if the destruction of the temple is like that also. I'd love to see that inside. Love to see that inside. Okay. Okay, let's continue. But if the deen comes from the side of the kochot, of the forces that are outside, shechutz lashura. What does it mean, chutz lashura? Outside the line. What line?
Both right, left.
There are three kav. There are three lines. There's the kav in the middle. There's the kav of the right, and there's the kav of the left. Right? That's called olam. That's called sfirot yoksher. Right? Three kavim: the chesed, the gvura, and the rachamim. Yes, those are the three kav. What does michutz lashura mean? Outside the line means it comes from the side of the tumah.
I thought the tumah is the left side.
No.
No. Left and right.
Let's
have
be
nothing
clear
to
again.
do.
Right is full shefa. Left
Side lacking
is
shefa.
lower, limited shefa, but still tov.
Just less tov. Okay, and outside the line is ra.
Outside the line is ra. That's come from the tumah. And maybe we can get an understanding of something that's very interesting. It says, ha'ahava mikalkel et hashura. Simply means people who are obsessed, they don't follow the rules. What's another way to understand that? When a person has a love, but no yirah, that could be from the wrong side. Love, but without yirah. That could be not just not tov, that could also be from the other side.
It's like a
There
parallel
needs to be a
love.
balance between yirah and ahava. Yirah without ahava is no good. Ahava without yirah is no good. They are both necessary for each other. And yes, and depending on the person, some people are more built connected to yirah. Some people are more built and connected to ahava. But they still have to have both ingredients. What was the mistake of Nadav and Avihu?
They had all the ahava.
Ahava, but not yirah. If they had yirah, they wouldn't have done it.
Wow.
Okay?
Without permission.
Without permission. Correct. And even though halachically they were not incorrect, because you're supposed to bring fire from outside, that's the whole discussion about that. That esh tamid tukad mizbeach lo tichbeh. But even though the fire comes from the Shamayim, it's a mitzvah for Bnei Aaron to bring esh of their own. So this is what they learned out. The mistake was they messed up with the Ketorah. That's never a good idea.
The ingredients were off, or
No, the ingredients are right. They brought esh zara. They brought a foreign flame, shelot tziva, that was not commanded. Anyway, why they do that? Ahava without yirah.
Yirah is spirituality.
So if they would have
Yirah is awe. The best definition of yirah is awe.
Like,
Appreciating that this is God's house.
or
This is not my living room. Right? Not my living room. I can't behave in the way I believe me in the living room like I behave in a synagogue. You have to behave, it has to be different. Okay? Let's continue. So when we talked about kochot shechutz shura, zeu inyan ra. So when the shefa is coming from outside the shura, outside the line, that's called ra. Uchshe'amidah hazot mitlabeshet beruach chen v'tach aronim. And when this midah, which means the aleph dalad nun yud, is mitlabeshet, what is the concept of levush?
encompassing wrapping. wrapped up,
You have a pinimi, and then you have a lavush.
and then chitzon.
No, chitzon is outside the shura. Okay, so you have a internal, a lavush, and then a lavush. I'll do an example. You have a neshama. The neshama is penimi. Then you have a lavush for the neshama. What's the lavush for the neshama?
The body.
The body. And then the body has a lavush. That lavush is called the clothing.
Clothing.
Okay? And there's nothing that makes one's clothing, unless it's asur to wear that clothing, right? Nothing makes one's clothing tameh, right? I mean, unless you speak Lashon Hara and things like that. We know about the negaim. But the goof is also tahor, right? Assuming that the behaviors that the neshama is doing are proper. Again, there's some that's not so clear. That's not exactly correct because there are certain things the goof does that are holy, that causes the body, the neshama, that are, for instance, a man has relations with his wife when it's appropriate time. For 1 day, he's tameh. For 3 days, she's tameh. Vis-a-vis the Bet HaMikdash, not vis-a-vis relations.
Right.
He's called the Tibul Yom, right? And she, as long as there's still Shichvat Zera that's coming out,
That
she's
has happened
tameh.
for 3 days.
3 days. That's why it says, Heyu necholim lishloshet yamim al tigishu elisha. Why 3 days? Not for the guy.
Because
The guy
sperm is
did need
viable
3
for 3
days.
days.
Correct. Sperm is viable for 3 days.
Biology.
And it's still poletet. The way the Gemara does it, she's poletet zera for 3 days. After 3 days, even if she's poletet, it's not considered to be sperm anymore. Maybe because of that viability thing.
It's considered after 3 days?
What?
It's considered to be sperm for 3 days. And after
That, it's not.
it's like just cellular matter.
Again, the Gemara says 3 days, she's poletet. That's it. After that, it's not considered to be zera anymore. Maybe for the reason you gave, that's great from a scientific point of view. Okay? Continue on. When this midaf, aleph, daled, nun, yud, is dressed, is clothed with the spirit of chen, chen, of course, is good countenance, the tachanunim, which is mercy, supplication, azai kol alam kulo mitpanes bechesed rachamim. When that happens, then the entire world receives sustenance from loving kindness and mercy. The zeu sod, and this is the sod of something we say in the Selichot, L'Adonay Eloheinu harachamim v'selichot, ki hatanu lo, right? Why is it La Aleph Daled Nun Yud?
That's then. You wouldn't say
Right? L'Adonay Eloheinu harachamim v'selichot, right? Meaning what? That the rachamim and the selichot, right, are for Yud Ke are for Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Because depending on our actions, that's how Aleph Daled Nun Yud receives Shefa. Okay. I'm going to read the next 2 sentences, and then we're going to go back on the bottom. Ushmor ze ha'ikar gadol, and guard this essential lesson. V'tavin mimenu, and understand from it. Ki kefi hashef hanimshach l'shem Aleph Daled Nun Yud, according to where the Shefa comes to Aleph Daled Nun Yud, kach mechanim shemo yitbarach. This is how we call, what nickname we use for Hashem under those circumstances. The Hashem berachamam v'chasadav ya'ir enenu bimor hasagato. And Hashem, in His mercy and His loving kindness, should open our eyes or enlighten our eyes with the shine, with the light of His understanding, of ability to understand Him. What he's basically saying here is when a person understands what he's trying to accomplish, then he's going to draw the shefa to the malchut from that midah. And when he prays in that kind of way, of course, he's praying to Hashem. He's not allowed to pray to Sfirot. But when his goal is to draw through the shura, from the shefa, from the right side, then he will receive tov.
Are you focusing on this sefirot when you're praying?
No,
person.
no, you're focusing to the best of your ability on
Hashem.
Hashem. Okay,
But
but
you have the kavanot, and you have the vowelizations. Each
The
one
goal
produces
is to recognize that the shefa that comes to the world comes through the sfirot. And by understanding the sfirot and how they transmit the shefa to the malchut, this is how a person can have his prayer answered.
You have to realize that the shefa is coming through the sfirot, but you
And
shouldn't focus on the sfirot.
draw it through the right side. Of course, the first thing a person has to do is has mitzvot ma'asim tovim. Otherwise, he's going to draw from the left side. But even if he has mitzvot ma'asim tovim, the goal is to draw from the right side, not from the din.
But you have to realize it's coming through the sfirot, but you can't concentrate on the sfirot.
Correct.
How do you do that?
Okay, well, that's why we only did the first shot over here. We have another 9 to go. Okay, let's go to the bottom over here and see if we can explain some of the things we discussed here.
You're looking at those kavanot. You're looking at those vowelizations.
I'm telling you what your kavanah is supposed to be.
Not pertaining to the sfirot.
No.
But you're realizing it's coming through the sfirot.
You're recognizing that the shefa is coming through the sfirot. That's what you're recognizing. But all comes from Hashem. All comes from the Ein Sof. Everything comes from the Keter, from the Ein Sof.
So you shouldn't even be focusing on any sfira. This one's hod, this one's chesed, this one's...
I don't know what it means focus on. What does that mean focus on? You recognize that on the receiving end, I want to draw the shefa from the shamayim, from the Ein Sof, through the right side.
Which is also chokhmah.
Right?
That is not hod. That's hod. But should you have hod in your mind, or
I don't know. It says, does it say in the Siddur to have hod in your mind when you say that?
No, it just says kubutz, 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 and that is the kavanah or the...
Okay, so let's try to understand that. Hatov shimcha l'chad na'ele odot begins with modim.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's the end of the modim bracha, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
No, that's the beginning. You say modim, you say
it's appreciating that all the goodness that comes, right, comes from Hashem. Right? Hatov shimcha l'chad na'ele odot, right? Hatov shimcha,
the good of your name,
ulcha,
and to
na'eh, pleasurable, good, to
give thanks.
Give thanks.
Great. Literally, it's great. But you're saying it 3 times a day.
Get the Siddur, let's see on the inside. Have a Siddur, give me the Siddur.
Effective studies.
I guess what I'm asking is, how do you use the kavanot without being chazan? Because a chazan, in the repetition, chazarat hashatz, he's going to be going all over these melismas as he's...
All right, if you want me to look into this further, I'm going to do this and come back to you on this one, okay?
You don't have to. This is just for the...
Okay, we'll come back to that, okay? Remind me, not today, but I'll come, well, I'll be better prepared for that, okay? I don't want to say something that's incorrect. Ben mi bifnim, ben mi bachutz. So we said...
That is in one of your lessons.
It is, that's correct.
To show him what's the right side and what...
He knows. He's
seen that?
He's an expert, he knows.
Oh, I read a little Zohar here.
Elohim Tzvaot, that's what the Hod corresponds to.
Impressed.
Very impressed. Okay, let's continue. Ayen la'el bebi'ur inyan etz hadat shedat perusho chibur. So he said, look more further above, where he defined the word dat. What does the word dat mean?
No,
Don't say knowledge.
Knowledge.
He
Don't
says what
say-
it means is chibur, connection.
Yes, between the up and the down.
Knowledge, what's the goal of knowledge?
Connecting
Is
to
to
things.
connect to Hashem, right? But the dot, the concept of dot, the word dot is to connect. Vayeda Adam. Man knew his wife. What does it mean he knew his wife?
He was connected to her. They
He
were one.
connected to
They were
her. They had relations, right? When it's used the word yeda in the last shon of the Chumash, ladat is relations, right? So connection. The word dat is connection, okay? Just like the dot corresponds to the spine. What does the spine do? It connects the brain to the body.
It's your neuron.
Right? What's that?
Your nerve system.
I got it. But the connection between the brain
And the body is
the body is the spinal column, and that corresponds to the dot. It's the connection.
And that's the lulav that connects the
very good, 100%. That's why everything is tied
to the lulav, to the palm branch.
Correct. Okay, that's why it's like chut hashidra. It says lulav is like the spine. When the sfirah of the malchut is connected to the lights of the atzilut, mibifnim, on the inside, as afilu hadinim hayotzi mimena hem latova. Even when there's judgment, it's for tov. Aval im mitchaberet lekochot achitzonim. But if the sfirah of the malchut connects to the outer forces, outside forces, mibachutz azhu ra, then it is ra. V'zeh lashon Rabbeinu lekaman perek bet, and this is what Rabbi Gikatilia is going to say in the next chapter, which is discussing the Yesod. Da, no, kikola hamshachot hayordot milamala, all of the things that are drawn, that come down from above, me'et kol sfirot ha'elyonot, from all the upper sfirot, kulam po'alot al derech hatov v'ashlemut. All of them are acting with tov and shlemut, perfection. Da'afilu yarad din le'olam, even if judgment is coming to the world, b'midat ha'pachad ve'agvura, even under that circumstance, it's considered to be tov. Hakol ba'al derech hatov hagamur, everything is coming from complete goodness. Ve'en ra'ah po'elet b'divrei le'olam, b'davar le'olam, and ra'ah, evil, does not act on anything in the world. Ki'im letovat oto hanifgam. So why does a person receive judgment? Because they have a blemish, and the judgment helps to remove the blemish. Ultimately, what's that called? Tov. Removing a blemish is called tov. And this is what it means when it says ve'etz hadat tovara. Now, what is etz hadat?
The tree of connection.
The tree of connection with tov and ra. See? Or tov or ra together. Keshemidat adnut hanikret etz hadat. When the midah of adnut, which is aleph daled nun yud, which is called etz hadat, sho'evet mimidat tov, draws from the midot of tov, from the right side. Kol maaseh nikraim tov, all of her deeds are called tov. Etz hadat tov. V'kol hachayim v'kol hamavet habaim le'olam hakol tov, and all of the life and all of the death that happens in the world is all tov. Aval im chas v'shalom, if God forbid, yifsikut sinorot sadik malka, all the pipes of tzaddik, which is the yesod, right? The yesod is the funnel that brings all the shefa from the upper sfirot to the malchut, right? If everything is stopped in the yesod, right, and it doesn't allow any of the tov to go to the malchut, stopped, closed. Mimidat tzedek hanikret etz hadat, from the midah of tzedek that's called etz hadat, which is again the malchut, yes, because the yesod and the malchut is connected to each other. Az midat tzedek moshechet ele amin advarim achitzonim. Then what happens? The midah of tzedek, which is the malchut, draws from the outside. Hanikraim ra'ah hola. That's called ra'ah, evil, and hola, sick. Kama minei mashchit, all kinds of destroyers. The kama mini puraniyot, and all kinds of punishments. Mishlachat lechol b'nei haolam, all kinds of things that are thrown to the people of the world, kefi chiyuv mishpatea, according to what they deserve based on the judgments. Az yithadshu ba'olam kol nega v'chol makah. Then in the world are new things, new plagues, and new types of makah, which is all kinds of makot. V'zeu etz hadat tov hara, which means the etz hadat tov is what? Is both sides. Is the chesed and the din. The ra is when there's no tov, when the tov is closed, then it's ra, which is on the outside.
It's like in a parallel place.
And this is what Shlomo said, Zeh leumat zeh hem omdim. They're standing opposite of each other. One is inside and one is outside. Ayen le'el shekochot hara mibachutz nikraim ber nochriya borot nishbarim. And look above, when we discussed in previous classes, that the kochot hara, which is the things that are on the chitzoniim, from the outside, they have names called be'er nochriya. Be'er is a well that is nochriya. What is nochriya? What does the word nechar mean? Strange. Right? Which means, what do we mean? It's something that is zara, something that is from outside the right path. Yeah? Uborot nishbarim, and pits that are broken.
When was the line called Etz Tov Hara? Was it before?
When it was created. That's
So
a
how do you have a concept of Ra before the sin? Because the sin brought Ra to the world, so shouldn't it be
Okay,
called-
it was after Shvirat HaKelim, so there was chitzon.
So it was called Etz Tov Hara after sin. And
No, it's
before-
called, when it was created, it was called Etz Tov Hara, because that tree, the goal
the
was,
concept of Ra, and he just brought the Ra down. But there's
he
always
closed the shefa, so now it came from the outside. That's the way we could
So he
understand
didn't
that.
create the concept of Ra. He just brought it down.
Ra was already
Oh,
created.
Okay.
Okay? Yoser Orah Boreh
Kosher.
Ra.
Okay.
The original pasuk is not. We change it in the tefillah. If you look at the pasuk, it's Yoser Orah Boreh Ra. That's the
That's
pasuk.
from Bereshit?
No, it's the Tanakh.
Oh, okay.
I can find it
Oh,
for
and
you.
you're talking about the brachas and berkat.
When we say the bracha in the
That's
Yotzer,
Oh,
we
sorry,
change the word of the pasuk from Ra to Choshech. But
the original pasuk.
Yotzer Or
Boreh
Choshech, it says Boreh Ra. That's what it says in the pasuk. Okay. Anyway, let's continue on. Imla nega, imla oneg. Again, both these words, nega and oneg, same word, just read backwards, forwards, right? Itab, again, itab b'mishnah sefer b'sefer Yetzirah. It is taught in the Mishnah, in the Sefer Yetzirah. All the Sefer Yetzirah is called Mishnayot. Esrim u'shtayim otiyot. There are 22 letters. Yesod keva'an begalgal kemin homa berala shi'arim. Where the foundation established them in the galgal, in the sphere, like a wall with 231 gates. That's what it says in the Sefer Yetzirah. We have to see what this means. The chozer galgal panim ve'achor, and the galgal revolves on the panim and achor. Siman ledavar, and a siman for this is en betova lemala me'oneg. There is nothing in tova that is greater than oneg. The en bera'a lemata minega, and there's nothing in the evil worse than nega.
Wow. Streams.
Extremes.
But nega is not the lowest level of Gehenna. So
Okay, let's not go there. Okay. Let's understand what is the purpose. What is one of the reasons we're here? Lit aneg al Hashem. The true ta'anug, the true oneg is al Hashem. Is based on how our relationship to Hashem is. That's the ultimate oneg of this world.
And you can use physical vehicalities. If you're
Of
doing
course.
Hashem Hashem, L'Shem Shamayim.
Shabbat, you have oneg.
Fine.
How does one do oneg Shabbat? You generally eat and you drink,
Basar,
right?
yain,
But
shira.
the goal is not for filling the belly. The goal is lehit aneg al Hashem.
That's
Le'it,
literally
All
the words
oneg that a person should get is al Hashem.
le'it, you say.
Lehit aneg, which means to
To
become.
become.
It's
Become
reflects to become.
happy.
Oneg
Oneg.
means
Elation.
oneg Shabbat. How would you translate that?
Pleasure of Shabbat.
Pleasure of Shabbat.
Okay.
Pleasure
That's too weak of a word.
on Hashem. It is a weak word. I agree with you. The Hebrew is much
Gotta be like
stronger.
Shakespeare, something.
The Hebrew oneg is much stronger. And
Oneg.
lehit aneg,
Honey.
which means to become elated, like he said, with Hashem. And that means you can use physical things for that. On Shabbat, we eat well.
Orisa.
Hashem, lit aneg al Hashem.
Orisa. Shulen. Any.
Okay, but that's
I don't know that one.
but it's not limited to Shabbat.
He's
That's
Sephardi.
Venezuelan?
No, Sephardi.
But it's not limited to Shabbat.
I mean,
Lit aneg al Hashem is a person supposed to be doing that
every day,
every day and all day. Okay?
without break. Even when you're sleeping.
So now continue on. Bi'er Sham Garon Rabbi Yitzchak Haver, B'Pri Tzadik, one of the students of the Gra. She'otiyot ve'akavatam limilim, the letters and the combination of the letters when they become words, hem shoresh binyan kol ha'alamot. They are the root of the building of all the worlds. How was the world created? With ma'amar, with speech.
I mean,
Speech in what language?
Hebrew.
Hebrew,
Ancient Hebrew.
with Hebrew letters. That's a question of whether or
The
not
ancient letters? Sure.
Ashurit, correct. Okay.
Ashurit.
Because if you think about it, what's an aleph?
Well, a two
Yud
Yuds and a
Kevav
Vav.
Kei.
How's aleph yud ke vav ke? Explain it.
Vav and Yud.
Vav, and Yud, and Vav make 26.
Okay, very good. That's how aleph is yud ke vav ke. And what about hey? Hey is a
That's
dalid
Daled.
and a yud,
Or two Vavs and Yud.
or two vavs and a yud. Okay.
Or just made up of Yuds. Everything made up of Yuds.
How's everything made up of yuds?
Everything came made up of points.
Nah, I wouldn't. I've never seen that. I
You're
wouldn't.
going beyond.
Going beyond. He's going beyond off the reservation on that one. Okay. And there's only a few letters, by the way, that are discussed like this. While all the letters have a significance to it, there's a few letters like the hey, the dalet, the yud, aleph. Those are the letters that are discussed. Okay. At least that I've studied. Okay. You could do this probably with all the letters, but you don't have, when it says that there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, right?
Give or take.
And then when we went to
600.
600, there are as many letters in the Torah as there were Yotzei Mitzrayim. Okay? That means there's a letter in the Torah for each Jewish neshama that left Egypt. Okay? But if you count up all the letters, he said there's 300,000. Well, how does that work?
You're not counting the kotzim.
Every
the
aleph
flags,
is
the
3
flags.
letters. Every hey is 2 letters. Right? So we understand that there's more letters there than it meets the eye. Okay?
No, but didn't you also go the space? The space between the letters are counted as people.
Okay. That's a nice idea.
Yeah, and then he transferred it to.
Again, I don't recall seeing that anywhere. But what we just discussed, this is talked about. Aleph is really 3 letters.
But with Moshe seeing Rabbi Akiva in the future, him darshaning out all the different letters, was he darshaning
The keter,
tags?
the
The
keter,
tags, okay.
tags. Okay.
Okay.
Let's continue. Okay. וכשאותיות המילה מסודרות בסדר ישר של א' ב', and when the letters are in order of the aleph bet, right? המילה יוצאת מהם מורה על צד החסד. It's from the chesed. Okay? So, okay, let's see what it means by that. וכשאותיות מסודרות בסדר הפוך, and when the otiyot are reversed, המילה יוצאת מהם מורה על צד הדין והגבורה. That's why in the 3 pesukim that we have that are 72 letters, right? The first one is chesed, right? First letter is chesed. The second one is din because it's reversed, right? And then the last one is rachamim. Exactly. What's that?
Are you talking about Ana Bechor?
No, I'm talking about the name of 72.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Continuing on. Ukesheder hashpa nishpa kesidro. When the hashpa, when the influence is according to its order, who oneg, it's pleasure. Eden, nahar, gan. Why those letters? Why those words? The nahar yotze me'eden lashkot et hagan. Eden, nahar, gan. What does it mean? It's in order. Eden is the source. That's the binah, or the chokhmah and the binah together. Then there's the nahar, which is according to some the binah or the fav. The gan is the malchut. The nahar yotze me'eden lashkot et hagan. That's called oneg. Okay? Eden hu chokhmah, he says. The nahar hu binah. Hanikret lechovot hanahar. Vehi mamshicha et hashefa derech hatiferet, and she causes the shefa, the abundance, to go by way of the tiferet, ad legan, until the gan, shua malchut. Okay. Kisheminatek adam min hamakor elyon, when a person causes chas v'shalom there to be a reduction from the source, the upper source, right? Nifsak hashefa, the shefa is stopped. Ve'ester ba'ala olam. And then hester, hiddenness comes to the world. Ve'oneg nepach lenega v'din. And the oneg is changed to nega and din. That's called hester panim. Ve'atam she'adam lo nivra litaneg al Hashem. And we know that the reason why the person is created, for what purpose? Litaneg al Hashem. Ulhanot miziv shchinato. And to have benefit from the ziv of the Shekhinah. She'ata'anug ha'amiti, the true pleasure, hu lit'aneg al Hashem beta'anugim haruchaniyim, is to have pleasure with Hashem with the spiritual pleasures. Aval kishe'adam mit'aneg me'ashefa shel chitzonim. But when a person has pleasure from the shefa, from the abundance of the chitzonim, of the other side, Shebaim mimerkevat tumah, that come from the chariot of the tumah. As oneg mitapech lenega ultumah, then the oneg changes and becomes nega and tumah.
There's an opposite merkava.
The negaim hem levanim, and the negaim are white. If you think about the mitzorah, there's white. Shebaim mitzad chesed de tumah. Why is there some of them white? Some of the negaim of the tzarat is white. It's chesed of the tum'ah. We said that there are sfirot of the side, the chitzon as well. There's a chesed of the tum'ah. There is no gar. There's no keter chokhmah and binah. There is only...
You're talking Gimel Rishim. Okay.
Right. There's no Gimel Rishonim. There's only the 6 or the 7. Okay? Shehi hitpashtut ta'ava. And what does that represent? Ta'ava, desire, yater al hamidah, more than should be according to measurement, which means when a person is after pleasures that are above and beyond the appropriate amount, that's what brings tzara'at, and it gets white. Why? Chesed of the tum'ah, because he went above and beyond. He more pleasure than is according to the amount that is supposed to be limited, which means we understand that chesed, too much, is bad.
Too much chesed bad, right?
That's correct.
Everything too much.
Okay.
Because then you're giving more than 20%.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far here. Let's not connect that. He's talking here about pleasure in the world. There are certain things that persons should have pleasure in the world, right? But it's supposed to be limited. Okay. Shekava boreit barach, which means Hashem established that there's a certain amount of physical pleasure a person is supposed to have, and no more. If a person looks to get more physical pleasure than it is allotted to based on the requirement, that's what brings the tum'ah. V'chen hachet hu pesha. Also, chet is pesha, right?
It's criminal.
Keshechozer b'tshuva, when he returns in teshuvah,
It becomes chayil.
mitapechot otiot pesha, the word pesha changes to
Shefa.
shefa.
Sheva.
Very good. V'chen otiot soneh, the letters of the word soneh, someone who is hated, mihafnehafechim lenaso.
To carry, what does it carry?
Lift
Lifting
up.
up, lifting up.
I don't get it.
I think it's lifted.
Soneh, what is a soneh? Someone you distance, yes? Soneh Hashem is someone hates that person because he did something wrong. When he makes teshuvah, what happens? Naso, which is the word soneh, but the letters changed. Same order, same
Same
letters,
letters backwards.
but backwards, exactly. Okay,
Shefa, pesha, soneh, naso, and oneg nega.
good. Yesh tzad shenikra tov. There is a tzad that is called tov. Kol hamshachot hayordot milamala me'et kol hasfirot ha'elyonot. All of the drawing that come down from above, from the sfirot ha'elyonot, kulam po'alot aderech hatov. All of them function by the way of tov. Va'afilu hadin, we discussed this already. Even din, she'ered le'olam, that comes to the world, hakol ba'al derech hatov. It's all coming for tov. Hagamur, ve'en ra'a po'elet bedavar le'olam ki'im letovat oto hanifkam. And evil does not act, okay, in that kind of way, except for the benefit of the person who is pagam, who is damaged. Kumosh Amar Nachum Ishkamzu, like Nachum Ishkamzu. What did he say? Al kol nega machala shebau alav. Every nega, every blemish, and every disease, sickness that came to him, gamzu letova. Rabbi Akiva haya omer tamid. Rabbi Akiva would always say, Kol de'avid min shemaya letav avid. Whatever comes from the shamayim,
It's good.
letav avid. Shayisurim hem tova le'adam. Physical suffering is tova for the person. Obviously, that comes from the side of the din. Okay? Why? Al yedehem nitzal me'onesh gehenam ve'amitah. When a person receives yisurim in this world, it saves him from what? Punishment in the afterlife. Exactly. V'chen ha'yisurim, also the yisurim, mizakechim et adam, purify the person. What we read in last week's parasha? Shemen zayit zach. What does zach mean? Katit lamaor. In order to get shemen zayit zach, what do you have to do? You have to squeeze the olive, but not crush it.
That's right. Somebody says it's Ibn Ezra that Orah or the.
It's the halacha.
You can't.
The menorah can only be taken from the squeezing
So
of
not
the olive,
Orah, not
which
like
is the
grinding.
first drops that come, or the first drop. After that, that's the oil for the menorah. Then you crush the olive in machteshet. Okay, then more oil comes out, and that's used for the menachot. That's used for the vegetable sacrifices. Okay, but the oil for the menorah comes from katit lamaor. And why is it katit lamaor? That only that light, only that oil can be used for the menorah. You can use light that is oil that is pressed or oil that is crushed for the menachot. But for the menorah, you could only use oil that is pressed, not crushed.
So how does it go? You take the olives, you press them, use that oil.
Squeeze it.
Menorah.
First couple of drops come out. That's for the
So
menorah.
from every group, every bunch of olives, you can only get one drop or a few drops, and then you have to use the rest.
No, they don't use the rest for the menachot.
No, they use the rest for the menachot, but the first few drops they use.
That's
After
for
the
them.
first few drops, you can't.
That's correct. That's it. That's
So
for the
it does
menorah.
take a lot of work, and it's a lot of money to get this shemen zayit zach katit.
100%. Okay. En Tziburani. Continuing on. The congregation is never poor. As a whole. Continue on. So we see the Yisurim mizakechim et adam. The concept of zichuch, which is how does something become pure? Generally, it has to be filtered, or it has to undergo some process of din in order to purify something. Yes. Sheyuchal lekabel Orah yitbarach, and the purification allows the person to receive the Or, the Shefa from Hashem. V'hem yisurim shel ahava, and this is the concept of yisurim shel ahava. K'mo she'amru Chazal, like our rabbis told us, Shlosha dvarim zachu liYisrael adei yisurim. 3 things the Jewish people only receive by way of yisurim: Torah, Bet HaMikdash, Eretz Yisrael. All those things can only be acquired through yisurim. What type of yisurim? Yisurim shel ahava, which means the yisurim that come from the din side, not from the chitzon. Like it was written in the Sefer Reshit Chochmah, Shaare Teshuvah Perek Gimel, Shnei minei yisurim. There are 2 types of yisurim. Echad mitzad chesed. One is from the side of the chesed. V'hem nikraim yisurim shel ahava. V'hasheni sheporea mimenu me'at me'at. That basically little by little. So if a person gets the full yisurim, they die. So what happens? You spread out the yisurim over time, allows the person to get a measurement of yisurim and not die. Okay? Them yisurim she'en b'hem bitul Torah tefillah. But these are yisurim that have no bitul Torah tefillah. Because yisurim that have bitul Torah tefillah, these are not yisurim shel ahava. But if he sinned in tremendous sins, the avar al kritot umitot betin, and he was over on things that give you krita, karet, or mitat betin, the 3rd category of the Rambam, right? There were 4 categories of sin. The first one is mitzvot aseh, that have no karet, which is all of them except for Brit Milah and Korban Pesach. The second category is lo ta'aseh, that don't have carry with them a capital punishment. Hazir, shaving with a blade. 3rd category is any mitzvot aseh or lo ta'aseh that carry with them a death penalty. Okay? And Korban Pesach and Brit Milah is included in that category. And the one that is included in that category that doesn't have death penalty is Shivuat Shav. That's immediately in the 3rd category because it says Ki lo yinakeh, which means Kippur alone is not enough to clean that up. A person has to have Yisurim. It's the Yisurim. That 3rd category requires Teshuvah, Kippur, and Yisurim in order to be cleaned up. And the last category, which is the worst of all, only has one avon in there, and that's the one Hilul Hashem. The Rambam says a person cannot be forgiven for Hilul Hashem except Teshuvah, Kippur, Yisurim, and then death. And at death, that's when the person is forgiven for the Hilul Hashem. Okay, so he says this is the 3rd category one, right? Mitot betin, kritot betin, as teshuvah v'yom kippurim tolim, which is exactly the lashon of the Rambam, right? B'yisurim, painful sufferings, lo aleinu lo alachem, mirakim gam b'yisurim sheyesh b'hem bitul Torah, and those yisurim are also sometimes involving bitul Torah as well. So those are not yisurim shel ahava. Those are yisurim shel avon, in order to clean the person up after he made teshuvah. And that's why you see sometimes when people make teshuvah, their lives get more difficult. And they can't figure out why. Oh my God, I finally joined the team. I joined the team and my life got so much more difficult. Yes, because those suffering that you're undergoing is cleaning up so you don't have to pay for it later on. What? Exactly. Your back pay, you have to pay it up. Exactly. That doesn't go anywhere. Okay. Let's continue on. A little more time? A little more time. I can't stop. Afa pishu mitzad adin, even though it's mitzad adin, let's see what it explains in the man. Ita begmara. It's taught in Gemara Masechet Berachot, Nun Dal Amud Aleph. Hayav Adam nevarech al hara'ah kashem shemevarech al tova. A person is required to make a bracha on things that are happen that are bad, similar to the way he makes a bracha on things that happen that are good. Adam ha'ma'amin, a person who has emunah, yodea, knows, ki kol ha'me'orot she'erulo, all of the things that happen to him in his life, harehem b'gzerat elyon, they're all decrees from the Shamayim. V'kulam higilo met Hashem, and it all comes from Hashem. If it's good, if it looks bad, it all comes from Hashem. V'tzarich le'argish, and a person has to feel, she'akadosh baruch hu av rachum, that Hashem is Av, Father, and merciful. Hashem me'ahavato miyaseret banav. And because he loves you, that's why one is afflicted. A father that doesn't afflict his children hates them. Chosech shifto soneh beno. You hold,
the rod?
spare the
Spare the
rod,
yeah, that's what
hate
that's
the
what-
child.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay.
Which means it's the job of the father or the mother to give Yisurim, Musar. Shema beni Musar avicha. Al titosh Torah imecha. Musar avicha is the concept of Musar, which comes from your father. That's what Mesilat Yesharim is all about. It's Musar avicha. Pirkei Avot is Musar avicha. Why is Pirkei Avot called Masechet Avot? I know it's translated Ethics of the Fathers. That's not a correct translation. I know somebody disagreed with me on that, but I still maintain my correctness on that one. It's not Ethics of the Fathers. That is a modern name. This, what Pirkei Avot is also, when it's called Pirkei Avot, that is a modern name. 300-400 years.
So you're saying Masechet
What is
Avot
the original name? The original name was called Avot.
Not Masechet Avot?
Masechet Avot, Masechet Sanhedrin, Avot, right? If you look at the Gemara, the Sanhedrin, right? Avot, that's the name of the Masechet. It's called Avot. Why is it called Avot? So we think it's because why? Because it talks about all of the rabbis and what their sayings were. Yes, one of the reasons is Shema beni Musar Avicha. This is said by the Maharal in his explanation of Pirkei Avot. In his introduction, he says it's Musar Avicha. All of Pirkei Avot is Musar Avicha. Okay, let's continue on. And he says it's in Nizikin because that's where most of the problems are, is between people and people, damages. That's why Masechet Avot is in Seder Nizikin. Yes, yes, that is correct. Okay. So we understand from here that when a father loves his son, what does he do? He afflicts him. He gives him Yisurim. Kasher yeyaser ishet beno, Hashem Elohecha meyasereka. Just like the pasuk of the Torah, just like a father causes difficulty, pain to his son from the purposes of Musar, yes? Similarly, this is what God, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, your God, does to you, because he's called Avinu. V'chol ha'yisurim shenishlechu lo, and all of the yisurim that is sent to the person, no'adu ach v'rak letovato ultikunu. A person has to have the emunah that all of the difficulties that Hashem is sending to me is for my tikkun and my tov, even though sometimes it's hard to see. Umi she'eno ro'eh hashkachat Hashem. A person who does not see the providence of Hashem betoch hatzarot, amongst the difficulties, hamitragashot alav, that come upon him, v'toleh et kulam b'mazalo hara, but instead he says, oh, I got bad luck. Harehu kemahalif zahav be'afar. Whoa. God is giving him gold. And he's exchanging it for dirt. The Yisurim, the purpose of the Yisurim is to recognize it comes from Hashem, and it's for my good to straighten me out and to clean me up. If a person thinks the Yisurim are coming because of bad luck, he's taking the gold that Hashem is giving him and he's turning it into dirt. And instead of receiving the tremendous zechut of receiving the difficulties from Hashem with ahava, and in that circumstance, when the person receives the yisurim, they cause there to be atonement on his sins. What? It's not just the painful suffering.
You have to accept it with ahava.
It's the acceptance of the suffering be'ava. This is what causes the kapara.
And without it, it's just straight up pain.
Hu mahalif et ha'izdamnut hanifla'ah. He's changing this tremendous opportunity be'itzvut u'b'tanot kalpei shemaya, with sadness and complaints against God.
If he's not accepting with ahava?
That's correct.
But he's just not.
If he's saying it's bad luck or he's complaining,
Okay.
he's not. He's getting the yisurim,
But he's not getting the end result.
but he's not getting the kapara. Wow. 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 The katav Baal Kilot Yaakov, and Baal Kilot Yaakov wrote a sefer. In book, he says, Tzarich lizkor tamid bizman yisurim. It is important for a person to always remember in the time of the suffering. Ki kol ze ya'avor. All of this will pass. V'yahalof b'mirutzat hazman. And sooner or later it will be done. Whatever Hashem is doing, He does it for good. And He doesn't know what the end is going to be. And at the end, when it's clear what will happen, he will realize it was all for his best. Sometimes he realizes it right away. Sometimes it takes a couple of years. But other times he's only going to see it latid level. So we see it's the acceptance of the Yisurim Ahava that results in the kapara, not the Yisurim alone. Wow. Next, Baruch Dayan Emet. We're going to finish up. We have 2 more paragraphs. We'll stop. Anu mivarchim al hamavet Baruch Dayan Emet. We make a bracha when a person dies. Baruch Dayan Emet. Ki hamavet eno klala. Listen up, Charlie. Hamavet eno klala elatov. Death is not a curse, but it's good. That's what he says. Kemoshe bi'er benefesh chaim, like Rav Chaim Volozhin, a student of the Gaon of Vilna, explained in the Nefesh HaChaim, Shar Aleph, the part that they don't study in the yeshivas. V'zeu she'amar hu yitbarach l'adam harishon, and this is what Hashem, what did he say to Adam harishon? Ki biyom acholcha mimenu mot tamut. On the day you eat from the tree, you will surely die. Lo sheyeh inyan klala ve'onesh. It's not a curse. It's not a punishment. Kimipi elyon lo totzerot, because from Hashem cannot be evil. Ela perusho, what's the explanation? She'al yidei acholcha mimenu, because you ate from the tree. Titarev becha hazoama shel hara. Now what's mixed inside your physicality is the filth of the ra. The lo yeh tikun acher le'afridam. And there's no other way to separate that filth that comes into the physicality when you ate from the tree, except with death. And when the person dies, that filth is physically separated through the decomposition, allowing the body to return in the future, in the resurrection, without that filth, which allows it then to live forever. But the only way this happens is death and decomposition. The Katav Od Sham, and he also wrote this in Nefesh HaChaim, Shim Hadam Haya Chai Le'olam. Why did God take him out of the Garden of Eden? Because he said if he would have lived forever, Ve'ocham Etz HaChaim, and eaten from the Etz HaChaim, Chas v'Shalom, what would have happened? Haya Nishar Chas v'Shalom Belo Tikun. There would have been no way for Adam to fix himself, because if he would have eaten from the Etz HaChaim, what would have happened? He wouldn't have died. And he wouldn't have died. There would be no way to remove the filth from him after he ate from the tree. The ra would never separate from him. And this way, for his benefit, Hashem threw him out of the Garden of Eden, so that he will die. And he can come by the way of a correction. Gamur, complete. Shetipared hara mimenu, that the ra will separate from him. Okay,
So, but that happened. Why isn't Ra gone?
it's still here because the resurrection hasn't happened yet.
But he. Look,
When a
Okay.
person dies and the body is decomposing, the Ra from the body is removed.
I would
Now the body is ready for resurrection.
I would have had him maybe say,
Even those in bones?
you need to experience
Yes.
this, and all the generations need to experience this until Tchiyat HaMetim. But he doesn't mention, now you're going to be cursing your generations.
He's talking about Adam. He's talking about Adam, which means all people. All people. All right, last paragraph, and then we'd be out of Zet Hashem. We finish the first Shaar. Beruach chen v'tachanunim. כאשר מידת המלכות מושכת חן מעולם הרחמים העליונים, אז כל העולם בחסד רחמים. When the midah of the malchut draws from the world of mercy, the upper worlds of mercy, then all of the world, this world, is chesed and rachamim. When the malchut is drawing from the appropriate place, then all of this world is chesed and rachamim. She'inyan hachen, the idea of the chen, hu kiyum kol ha'olamot b'shefa bracha me'otzar chinam. What is the word chen? From the word chinam, that basically is the establishment or the kiyum, the continuance of the world with shefa, abundance and bracha, me'otzar chinam, from the free treasury. Free. Ki ken haderech latet shefa bracha lechol nosei chen. Because we see that Hashem gives shefa and bracha to anyone who is nosei chen. What is nosei chen? The concept of nosei chen, and we're going to see that in a second. K'mo shekatav Agra, like the Gra wrote for his Perush on Mishlei 31:30. Kivar katavti lemala shechen hu milashon chinam. I said above that the word chen is from the language of chinam, free. V'lachen ne'emar tamid matzati chen. That's why it always says matzati chen. I found pleasure in you. Yes. Noach matzah chen. Noach found chen in the eyes of Hashem. Shehi mitziah. What is it, mitziah? You find it. When you find something, it is free.
Oh, is that free?
When I find something, it didn't cost me any money. If I pay for it, then it costs me money. So we say, well, that's why the language is the Noach matzah chen. What is the word matzah? Find.
Matzah means
Matzah, mem tzadi aleph,
Right.
not hey. Okay?
Okay.
It's a mitziah. It's a find. She'ena ra'ui liyot ken ha'emet. And really, that's not how it should be. You should have to pay to have chen in the eyes of Hashem. It shouldn't be found. Dehainu she'ena na'eh be'emet, ela shenoset chen v'lachen ne'ema sheker hachen. And that's why it says sheker hachen v'hevel hayofi. Sheker hachen, meaning what? That it's free. It's really not nice that this should be free. You'd have to pay for it, right? Right? You carry chen. It doesn't mean the chen is free. It means holding the chen is free. The chen may cost money, but keeping it is free.
There's nothing wrong to have something free.
Nothing wrong, except soneh matanot yitchiyeh. It's not good to receive gifts.
Oh.
Tell that to all the Dems.
Okay.
V'lachen ne'emar sheker hachen. Therefore, it says sheker hachen. Why? Because chen is not supposed to be free. It's supposed to cost money. But noseh chen, to carry it once you have it, that shouldn't have to cost you any money.
You could use it, though.
Right. Ubi erod b'sefer Ma'alot Torah. It also is explained in Sefer Ma'alot Torah. Gama Torah nikret Ya'alat Chen. The Torah is also called Ya'alat Chen. K'mo shekatav vayimtza Yosef Chen. Yosef found Chen. Vayifkideh v'chol asher lo natan biyado, in the house of Potiphar. Westman says Yosef found Chen in the house of Potiphar. And what happened? Potiphar, what did he do? He appointed him. V'chol asher lo natan biyado. He gave everything to Yosef. Al yedei zeh sholtim b'chol ha'alamot. Based on this, we rule over all the worlds. You rule over the world. V'gam mitkayem beyado, and it also stays with the person. Tigzar omer v'yekam lecha. וכמו שאמר, גם את הדבר הזה כי מצאתי חן בעיניי. In this next week's parasha, parashat כי תישא. Also this, because you found chen in my eyes. ועל ידי chen ניצל מן המבול. And because of the chen that Noach Hashem found chen in Noach, yeah, what happened? He was saved from the mabul. We think it was because he was a tzaddik. He was a tzaddik that allowed him to Noach machatzachem b'nei Hashem, and that's why he was saved from the mabul. K'mo she'amar v'Noach machatzachem b'nei Hashem, the kayem olam maleh, and he basically sustained an entire world because all the world comes from Noah. Ub Esther, and now with Megillah, kirot hamelech, when the melech saw Esther, vatisa chen be'enav, and he had pleasure in his eyes. Chen, he saw beauty in his eyes. V'nitzulo al yedei zeh kol Yisrael. All the Jewish people were saved. Why? Because Achashverosh looked at Esther and had chen. She got him to look at her with chen. That saved all the Jewish people. V'ikar chen nimshach al yedei etzek haTorah. And the essential chen is achieved how? By toiling in the Torah, like we're doing right now. K'mo shekatav b'nefesh hachayim, like it's written in Nefesh hachayim, Shaar Dalet, Perek Yud Dalet, Yud Gimel. This is what is studied in yeshivas because it's about the Torah. Bereshit Rabbah Perek Tet, in Midrash Rabbah Perek Tet v'Bereshit, lemelech shebana platarin, a melech that made a palace. Ra'a ota ve'arvalo. He saw it and he had pleasure from it and he liked it. Amar paltin paltin, castle castle. Halavai tieh ma'alat chen. It should be that you're always looking for beauty, always looking good. Kach amar kadosh baruch hu. This is what Hashem said to his world. Ol me, my world, my world. Halavai tieh ma'alat chen lefanai becholet. We should all work very hard. That Hashem should find chen with our behavior. Just like you had chen in this time, so we see Torah is keneged kulam. When a person's studying Torah, what happens when a person studies Torah? Hashem has chen, finds chen in the person, right? Okay, and this is the finish of the Sha'ar Rishon. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.